You're listening to Haze Radio Network, Cannabis Lifestyle Radio. Yeah, you know what it's like when I am getting up in the morning trying to figure out what I got going on, and I realize, man, I got a guest today. How cool is that? And it's always cool to talk to all different people from all aspects of life. And I guess one of the great things I enjoyed is having guys that are in the entertainment industry, you know. And today I got a good friend of mine, Kenny Smith, here. What's up, Kenny? How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing good this morning.
How you doing? So, question: born and raised in Cali or now?
DC.
DC.
Yeah.
Nice. How long you been in DC? You grew up in DC?
I was there until I was 18, then I went off to college in Virginia.
Nice.
Hampton University.
Shout out to Hampton University. I actually remember in West Virginia, I went to school in Towson, Maryland. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we went to WVU all the time to go to fraternity parties and shit. It was fucking crazy back then, going to school in that area. I grew up in New York, so growing up in the East Coast, coming out to the West Coast, completely different, right?
Yeah, definitely. It took me about, I think 2 years to adjust to it.
2 years?
Yeah.
When did you come out here? How old are you?
I was 21.
All right, so 21,
Yeah,
coming out to Cali, fresh from East Coast,
Yeah.
which is a way different life. What was it like?
It was different. One, it was job interviews. You didn't wear a shirt and tie.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I noticed. It was more laid back.
Way different, right?
Yeah.
And can we talk? Can we date? Can we go back to what year that
Yeah, it was 95.
All right, so 95, cruising out, coming out, and what kind of jobs were you doing or working on?
When I got out, I had a couple people that I stayed with. And I had a professor at Hampton who said, you know, when you go out to LA, these are the people you call. They'll take care of you, some alumni, and I came and stayed with them for a couple weeks. And then one of them told me about CBS
Okay.
in the city.
Okay.
They said, oh, you know, you can get a job there. They have a big turnover. They're always looking for pages. So that was my first job.
So when you were going to school, you were going for writing?
Television, radio. I didn't decide on writing until
Okay.
like, right at the end, that last semester. I said, maybe writing.
Okay. So what stuff did you do in school? Let's talk about that. Like what kind of shows, or did you do any plays or like any kind of stuff like that? Or
No, I started off as a computer science major freshman year, and then right towards the end, I was like, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. I don't want to sit in front of a computer screen. I want to have fun.
Of course.
I was a huge fan of TV, so I switched to television, radio.
But you're a tech person. You enjoyed the technology.
I do.
Right?
I do.
You know, you and I come from the era when it was like Atari, you know, ColecoVision, like all that type of stuff before anybody even had phones, pagers, all that shit. Growing up at that time is way different, you know?
Yeah.
Life was different generally, right? So much about life, right?
Yeah, I'm always a fan of tech. I even watch ABC News in the morning, the 5 a.m. show, because they do the tech reports.
Oh, that's cool.
Just so I can see what's going on. So in school, it was just production classes. I would take production ethics, radio, how to edit for radio.
Nice.
A lot of news classes, because Hampton was really geared towards the news because they felt that was the way for the industry.
And back then, radio was super strong. It wasn't like we had
Oh.
XM satellites or this, and you know,
No.
things are way different. Plus, what's funny is a lot of the millennials and younger people don't realize, because they're used to XM and used to different things now, as a way of music being where they're programmed where this is the hip hop channel. This is the classic this is this. When we would listen to radio back then, it was like you hear metal, this, you know, Cyndi Lauper, then Metallica, then Run DMC, then this. Like you'd hear all these different genres of music on the radio, and now that's like foreign to people.
Yeah, and you'd have time slots. This would be the hip hop hours in the afternoon, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I also worked. I think I spent a summer working at the radio station in Hampton as well.
Oh, really?
So I didn't know what I wanted to do yet, so I kind of was just
Kind of going around, figuring out, learn the boards, but that's always good though, because you had a full kind of idea before you jumped into what it was that you wanted to really do, right?
Yeah.
So you get out to LA,
Mm-hmm.
you hook up with people. They say go to CBS. What goes down?
I worked there as a page. I was there for 4 weeks. I would help write labels for the Price is Right contestants.
Oh my God. That's killer.
I would sit in the Young and Restless booth and answer the phones for
Oh wow.
the actors were called.
There was a Young and Restless booth? Explain that to me. Like, what does that mean?
The booth is with the director and the camera operator, the person who gives instructions to the camera operator, and the lighting cues. They all sit in this booth, and then the actors would call up to say, hey, what scene are they on? And I had to sit there for 8 hours, wait for a light to go on in the corner to say the phone is ringing, and then answer and say they're on scene such and such.
Holy shit.
It was an awful experience to sit here and wait for this light to go on the whole day. That was the whole job.
Did it pay okay, though, for the time period?
No.
Okay.
It was bare minimum. So I did that for 4 weeks. But while I was there, actually, I came out this month before, 2 months before.
Okay.
Because I wrote a couple of Seinfeld scripts for my senior thesis. And so while I was preparing for my defense, I ended up calling around and getting in touch with someone who worked on the show. And I called after graduation and said, hey, can I come out and visit and just see what you guys do? And they said, sure. Because the woman I spoke to, her sister had actually gone to Hampton.
Oh, that's cool.
So I came out, spent a week.
Working all the collegiate angles you possibly could right there.
It was just lucky chance. So I spent a week on the set of Seinfeld and a day on the set of Larry Sanders Show, which was an HBO comedy show back in the day.
I remember both those. So how was it? Were you going there when it was in the mid of its craziness?
Yes.
Okay, so when they're a full-on like ego and they are fucking the kings of the television, essentially, right?
They were all great. Everyone was
probably cool, right?
Yeah, everyone was so nice to me.
Yeah,
they were just like, oh, welcome to the show. I found out while I was there that they had students come out and visit the show before, but they'd never had a black student come out.
Oh, wow.
And so everyone knew who I was by the end of that week. And
that's
then
funny.
When I came back and I was working at CBS Radford.
And how was that going as
the experience?
Just being like from a cultural black perspective, going on to a TV show that was very white casted, essentially, right?
Yeah, it was fine. Everyone was just nice.
But in your head,
in my head,
did you have something about like, oh, these crazy Hollywood white people, this whole fucking life here, like this is just so fucking nuts? I mean, think about what you got to jump in and to see, you know?
You know what? I think I was prepared in high school because in high school they sent me to a predominantly white high school in Maryland.
Okay.
Because I went to all black elementary, junior high.
See, that's where I started thinking about. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
You need to go here to experience that lifestyle. It's not going to be all black all the time. And so going there wasn't culture shock. It was
But again, just curious because again, East Coast, you're coming out to LA. I'm not just saying it from a black perspective, but an East Coast person coming out to seeing how work and life and Hollywood is, and you get to jump into one of like the craziest, most renowned TV shows on the planet at that time. It had to be crazy just be like, what the fuck, how am I on here? Where am I doing on the West Coast? What the fuck is going on? You know?
I can tell you, it wasn't, because at the time I was still young and didn't have any boundaries or rules. I didn't know about rules and boundaries at that point. I think that's what made me do the things I did, because now I would say, oh, you can't do that. What are you talking about? You can't just call and say, hey, can I come spend a week on the set? Then I just didn't care. The second to last day, they were shooting on New York Street. Larry David and everybody was out there. And then Gary Shandling came over to talk to him. So once they were done talking, I went over to Gary Shandling and said, hey, I went onto your set the other day. It was closed, but I got to see, some of the sets, and I had some questions. I would not have had that fearlessness now.
No.
Then it was, hey, I'm here. Why not ask?
No.
I think it was the inexperience of youth.
Sure. And also it was the newness of Hollywood.
Yeah.
As well, because that can't happen these days. I mean, you work, we'll get to what you do now and stuff, but a lot more difficult to roll out to sets to do shit like that.
Since 9/11, yeah.
So you go and you do that, and then what happens from there?
That's when I flew back out immediately and ended up getting a job at CBS. And then I called the line producer over at Seinfeld and said, hey, I'm back. I'm looking for a job. Is there anything you might know? And so her husband was a producer as well, and he worked at Martin as a producer. So she said, they're looking for somebody over there. Just go over there and meet. I'll get you an interview. And I went over and I met with Martin's brother, who was a producer as well.
Nice.
And they're from Maryland.
So now super tight. And that was like really cool. They're like, yeah.
Yeah, so the next day.
Let's talk about that Old Bay seasoning and the fucking barrels of crabs to get some fucking beer out, right?
Yeah. Landover Mall was like the mall that they grew up near, which was like, the big mall for us in D.C. And so
that's funny. Is that the one that's the underground too, or the one that goes like underground for miles and shit?
Oh no, that's probably like Union Station or out in Pentagon.
Sure.
Landover was like way out.
Way out. Okay.
But I met with him, and then the day I started on Martin, he called me in and he was like, "Hey, you only been in LA 6 weeks. Nobody wanted to hire you, but you're from back home, so I'm gonna give you a shot." And so I ended up working there for a few months.
That's cool. And what did you do there?
I was a PA.
Nice.
So I would go deliver scripts at night. I would get food for the writers.
Sure.
All the pick up tapes from the post houses.
Nice.
It was grunt work.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I could imagine.
I mean, it was Martin. So.
I know, right? And was he pretty cool back then?
Oh, they was great. His family was great to me.
That's
he
wild.
was great.
I always think about when he had that show and like when he did that stupid thing. He was like running outside, exciting with
the sweatsuit,
with the sweatsuit and
yeah.
stuff. And he almost got like fucking went in the hospital, right, or something like that. I remember back when I was a kid, like reading about that shit go down. That's great. So you sort of Seinfeld. And now you're gone a predominantly black set essentially.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Was the whole feel different or not or similar? Was just the routine of everything the same? I mean,
it wasn't predominantly black.
No,
it was still. I mean, it's still Hollywood. So it was
sure. But the cast
was black, and there were more black people working on that show than I had seen before. And I think that was a part of Martin's. What he pushed for to get black people into the unions,
That's
hair,
great.
Makeup,
Hell
editing.
Yeah. Nice.
So people don't know those stories.
But that's cool though.
Martin made sure that minorities got into unions that weren't as receptive sometimes, or people didn't have connections to get in.
And he had the clout.
Yeah,
that's what it was. And he was popping movies like a motherfucker too.
Yeah,
he was making not just TV. He was on. It's different if you're a TV actor. Mm-hmm. And you try to cross to movies, or you're a movie and try. They have this like taboo-ness. Now I think later on now, like as we got older and like cinema and technology is way different. That doesn't matter, but back then it mattered.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. So from Martin, what was some of the funniest things? Could you recall any kind of just like on set type story or something that you could reveal slightly about? Like it doesn't even have to be Martin, just experience of fucking funniness or anything like,
Not really on set. I didn't spend a lot of time on set. It was mostly in the office. I mean, I don't have any on story. Anything crazy. No, for me there was just so much food. That's all I really remember.
Lots of food?
There was food, and for someone who was making just enough to get by, to have all the free food that you could want.
You could eat all the time.
It was a lot of storing up for the weekends.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. So instead of shit getting tossed, you're like, oh man, I can bring this shit home. It's
yeah. The PAs, we would definitely.
Did you have roommates or not?
No, I had a small little apartment in Studio City. So it would be the Wednesday before would be stocking up a little extra, some drinks, some snacks.
Nice.
When we'd walk through the meal line on Fridays, you get about 3 or 4 plates that'll take you through the weekend.
Oh man, dude, that's great.
It was just the hustle of it.
That's awesome. So then what happened from there?
The showrunner on that show, Bentley Kyle Evans, he ended up creating the Jamie Foxx show during that time.
Okay.
And so I went to him on the side and I pulled him aside. I was like, yo, Bentley, everybody who started at the beginning of Martin has moved up to being writers or directors or all these other positions. I was like, I'm coming in at the end. I want to be at the show at the beginning. Can I go with you to Jamie Foxx show? And
sure.
He was like, yeah. He was like, I see you hustling around here all the time. Yeah, I'll give you a shot. And so I went with him. And then
that's a fun. Oh my God.
Oh, that was because Jamie set the tone of that show. Jamie is a partier.
Oh yeah.
And he's a welcoming partier.
Oh
he wants to make sure everyone's having a good time.
Yeah.
So I went first season as the writer's PA, and then second season they made me a writer, but had a ball.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a fun story. I don't know how fun it is, but I got a story, a Hollywood story. So I was a writer at that point. I was thinking my second season or so, and we had a special episode that I wrote with Meth and Red were on.
Oh, nice. Shout out to my boys.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Meth and Red were there, and I'm not sure if I wrote it, but anyway, Meth and Red were there, and so it was Grammy week, and so we were shooting the episode, and that night, Bobby and Whitney came to this taping, right?
Oh my God.
And so it was like, oh, this is cool. So every week after the show, Jamie would take everybody out. You could go party at Miyagi's, which used to be on Sunset. And, you know, they had karaoke and it'd be a ball. And I usually didn't go. And so this night they were like, no, you should come with us. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll come. You know, so I go, and I remember being at Miyagi's, and they used to have a deck where you could be outside. Do you remember Miyagi's?
That one's a little past me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I was out on the deck, and I was on the phone with someone, and I remember I heard karaoke, Every Little Step I Take. And
Oh,
I
my
was
God.
like,
No.
I was like, that's tacky. You know, Bobby and Whitney are here, and someone's playing their song, singing to it. And I was like, this guy sounds really good. He sounds just like Bobby. And so I go in, and it's Bobby Brown with the karaoke screen, reading the words, performing Every Little Step I Take. And it was like, oh, that's so cool. I was like, oh, this is Hollywood.
Man.
So then,
Oh, man, that's wild.
so then he finishes, and he says, all right, baby, it's your turn.
Oh.
And she waves him off like, no. And he's like,
Oh.
nah, baby, you gotta do it. And this is just a bar lounge. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's packed in. There's no security, there's no nothing.
Oh,
and
my
so
God.
she gets up, and then she crosses to the center of the room. And she's about where you are. I'm a little further back. And she's like, all right, you motherfuckers, I usually get paid $1 million for this, so, you know, be thankful. And so
Oh, shit.
they don't even play the karaoke machine. She starts singing I Will Always Love You a cappella.
Oh,
And
man.
she destroys it. People are on the tables. People are everywhere just trying to get closer. And
What?
she belts that thing out. And if you weren't a Whitney fan, you were a fan after that. Like, that's a singer.
Wow.
Like, it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, I'm in Hollywood. That's right.
That's tight. That is super tight. That's so. Was there any favorite? Okay, so writing. Let's get into that.
Yeah.
You were writing, then you started writing on some of the episodes, and then the second season you were main writer or a writer, or how many writers
season-
are there? How does that usually work?
Jamie Foxx, I can't remember, it was probably like
Couple.
9 or 10
Okay, so
writers.
yeah, okay.
I started season 2 as a writer's trainee, and they bumped me up to staff writer halfway through. So I was at
Okay.
the bottom of the totem pole.
Now let's talk about the totem pole of staff writing for those who actually are interested in becoming a writer one day, because we do have a lot of people that, you know, many generations that are listening to us, you know. How does the totem pole work?
You start off usually as a staff writer, and then it's a little different now. Back then,
Let's talk about back then for a second.
Back then,
yeah.
you were a staff writer. You did maybe a year, and then you go next season be a story editor. Next season, you'd be exec story editor. Then you'd be a co-producer, producer, supervisor producer, co-exec, and maybe you get an EP if you were, you know, in the business long enough, or you had your own show. But those were the levels every year.
Okay.
Now it's rougher. Now, because back then we would do 22 episodes guaranteed.
Sure.
Here in the present day, you might do 10, 13 episodes of a show. It's rare that shows do that. Like, a lot of the comedies on ABC do 22, but a lot of shows don't.
Okay.
So if you do, let's say, 10 episodes, you don't really make enough money to make it through the whole year. So then you're scrambling for another job. And then
Oh.
another show may say, you know what, we're going to make you a staff writer again, or we'll make you a story editor. So you may spend years at the same level and not moving up, making more money, getting more experience.
Sure.
And you can't really get a good living out of 10 episodes or 8 episodes a
Okay,
year.
okay.
And then you have like a 7-month gap where you're not working and they're not
Sure,
paying you.
sure,
And you
sure,
don't even know if you're going to
sure.
come back to that
Sure.
show.
Oh, I got you.
It's a
Wow.
harder
Wow.
it's a harder time.
Wow,
Back
wow.
then, we would do 22, be off for like 3 months, and then back into it doing another 22. So
Sure.
you knew where the checks
Oh,
were
wow.
going.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because they're doing so many episodes, like you said,
Yeah.
then in each time, whatever. Okay, I got you.
And you also got a gang of experience. I mean,
Does it work like an actor, though? Do you get like extra royalties after when they keep playing them on different things, or how does that go down? Or you can't say?
no, I can say
Okay.
It's a difference between then and now. Back then, yeah, you would get your royalties when they'd say, okay, it's residuals. This show's now, Jamie Foxx plays 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And right now, it doesn't play all the time in LA, but like in DC and in New Orleans,
Sure.
it plays 5 days a week.
Of course.
On the independent channels. And then you would get a check.
Yeah.
Right? But now the way it works, if you don't go 5 days a week and you go like to cable, like FXX or something,
Sure.
the residuals aren't as much.
Yeah,
You know,
okay,
sometimes
sure.
it's like
Pennies.
$100. It's like $100 versus, and then if you do just streaming, sometimes it'll be $30.
Sure.
Where we would get full checks back then.
And what would you get hypothetically back then?
Like a
Instead of
first
30?
run, if it aired again, you might get like
10.
10,000.
Yeah.
And then second time you might get 5,000.
Sure.
For the second and third time, and
Sure,
then after
sure.
that it'd be maybe 4,000.
Sure.
But that adds up if you do
Of
like
course.
a few episodes. Now, that was one of the things that the writers were striking about back in 2007.
Okay.
Because a lot of shows were rerunning on cable or streaming, and people were just getting $40, $50, you know, for the same work that they were doing, and
That's
the same amount of
crazy.
people were watching.
That's crazy.
And so it was like, hey, who's getting all the money now?
Yeah,
And-
I mean, that just goes right to the to Paramount or this or whoever who does it, right? Or Fox or CBS.
But even back then, it wasn't as much variety. So you had bigger audiences back then. You have smaller audiences, but there was a loophole that got the pay cut down.
Sure.
And that was the big thing.
Sure.
And so it's harder to make a living now on residuals. Like a lot of the shows I was on back then are 5 nights a week, and they do well because that was in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Yeah,
so I
sure,
still
sure.
have that little nest egg
Of course.
money coming in.
That's great because they do replay that stuff over and over and
Yeah.
over again, which is
Yeah.
cool. And then so after Martin, what was the next step?
Jamie Foxx, and then
Jamie
I
Foxx,
finished
right?
Jamie Foxx.
Now let's talk about did you do something with the Wayans or something like that? Or were they part of Damon Wayans and all those guys?
the Wayans show back then, no, but I worked on Marlon 2 seasons ago.
Oh, okay.
He had the show on NBC.
Okay.
I worked on there.
Those guys I love, man. From way back in the day, and all the different fucking what was that in Living Color?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of the ultimate like fucking shows back in the day for sure. So, what's the next step after that?
After Jamie Foxx, I got a couple offers for shows, but I had some friends from Jamie Foxx that went on a show called One on One with Flex Alexander and Kyla Pratt that was at UPN, and they were like, "Oh, Kenny, you got to come here. We're gonna have fun. Remember how fun Jamie Foxx was? We'll have fun over here." And so I went with them and ended up working on that show for 3 years. That's where I really learned my craft. We had a showrunner, Yanetta T. Boone, who was from D.C., and her sister and my sister were in school together in class. We all went to the same school. And so I kind of knew her sister, but I didn't know Yanetta because she was older.
Okay.
And so that was one of the reasons I got that job as well.
Okay.
And Yanetta just was open to anything. If I asked to go to editing with her, she was like, "Yes, come learn this." If I wanted to go to sound mix, she was like, "Come."
Oh,
learn."
okay.
So anything I asked to learn, she was like, "Come on, you can do this." And that's where I really got my bones as a producer.
Hell yeah, that's cool. So you got the more full roundedness.
Yeah.
And is it easier to get credit to be a producer when you have all those things under the belt? Essentially, do you get credit for that type of stuff, or how does that even work?
You already get the label of producer, but it just depends on the show you are on, how much responsibility you get.
Sure.
And so for me, that show, the responsibility I got from that show, I just asked for it.
Okay.
You know, I was definitely a lower level producer. There were producers higher than me.
Oh yeah, sure.
I would stay late and come early to do anything I could to learn more.
I
Because
got you.
some writers see themselves as artists, you know.
Okay.
and I see myself
I understand that.
somewhat as an artist, but
Yeah.
I see myself more as a worker. Like
Sure.
it's a job.
Sure.
So I'm gonna do everything I can to be the best at this job and learn everything I can because I want to keep working.
I got you.
And so that has helped me hone my craft and also more appealing to showrunners when they're looking for writers to be on their show.
Sure.
They'll call and be like, "Oh, Kenny, he'll work hard. Yeah, you want to hire him."
Oh,
So
yeah,
the
yeah,
recommendations
yeah.
are all there.
Oh, I got
It's-
you.
A lot of people just come in for the artistry and that, and to me,
Oh, I understand.
it's I want
To
to stack
them,
the
it's
deck.
not even truly even a monetary thing. There's some guys that it's just real about the prestige of the show and this and what the content and how they're shaping and molding what people see and stuff. Or
And about getting their ideas out and their beliefs. And
Sure.
I feel all of that, but I also feel like it's a job. So I'm going to be on time. I'm going to be there every morning when it's time to go versus some people will stroll in a half hour, 15 minutes late. Cause
Sure.
But I still like to think I'm from D.C. and I was so far away from this Hollywood opportunity that I know that it's a big deal.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then from there?
From there, one-on-one, I left because I didn't want to do family shows anymore. I didn't have a family at the time.
So you were doing all these family shows, which they were, lots of family shows.
Yeah, I was probably 27.
In deep.
Yeah, I was probably 27. I was like, oh, yeah, I want to do something else. So I left that show and I met around on a couple shows. One was Boondocks when it was it was for Fox. Originally it was for Fox.
Yeah, I remember that
and
one.
They picked up American Dad instead, so I didn't get that job. And then I was about to not work first time in years. But then Paramount, who did One-on-One, produced that show. They were like, we liked you on One-on-One. Please, we'll throw you on one of our other shows if you want to stay working with us. And I was like, yeah. So I worked on a show called Second Time Around with Boris and Nicole Ari Parker. That did 13 episodes and was canceled. But then the spinoff from One-on-One took its place like a week later. And so the producers, Yanetta and them, called me from One-on-One and said, hey, would you come over and be the head writer for this show?
And what was the
Cuts
show?
was it's about a barbershop. It had
okay. I think was
Marcus Houston and God, she was in American Pie.
one of the American Pie people.
Yeah, one of the American Pie
That's
people.
cool.
I can't
That's
remember her
great.
name.
Nice. That's funny.
I did that. We did a year and a half, and then that show went away. The whole network went away. UPN went away.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I'm going to focus on features now because I've been dabbling in features over the years, doing rewrites, small jobs. And so I was just going to focus on features. But then I got a call from Paramount and Mara Brock Kill. They were like, oh, they're going to do this show called The Game, which was going to be a spinoff of the show called Girlfriends.
Okay.
And so I was like,
And what is that? And explain what both were, because I'm not familiar with either of those. So,
Tracy Ellis Ross, who was on Blackish.
Okay.
She was on this show called Girlfriends, which went for like 170 episodes.
Get the fuck out, really?
On UPN.
Okay.
It was basically
They're heavy, the heavy hitter of UPN, or what?
Yeah. It was 4 black women and their struggle with lives and jobs and friendship.
Okay.
And it was a big hit for them.
Okay.
And The Game was a spinoff.
I mean, let's be honest. You said 170. So as a writer, if you start adding up the mathematics, that one goes up pretty good, right?
It does.
The more you get to episodes you get to a show, the better it is then for you, essentially, right?
Yes and no.
Okay.
In one way, it's people say there is people didn't respect those shows.
Okay.
People in the business really didn't respect those shows because they were black shows.
Okay.
And so it didn't matter
Interesting.
that they did 170 episodes and made millions of dollars for whatever company they were for. They weren't respected.
Wow.
So
that's fucked up.
yeah, Jamie Foxx, all those One-on-One, all those shows did like 100 episodes plus, and people didn't respect them to say you can work anywhere or we appreciate you. I would hear stories like, if you were a producer on that show, they may bring you as a story editor, like a second level writer on a predominantly white show because you're not up to par.
What?
That's just the way of the business. That's the way of the world a little.
Yeah, I know, but that just an interesting way to look at it, though.
Yeah.
And you had to climb through a major amount of that then, essentially, and learn about it when a lot of people wouldn't even have a clue.
Initially, first, it was I wanted to be able to work on any show. And so I was like, I don't want to get stuck just on black shows because I want to keep working. And if there's no black show, there's no work. And so I think it wasn't until about 6 or 7 years in where I was just like, I'm not going to chase that anymore because I want to enjoy going to work. That was the whole point of me switching to TV radio was to enjoy myself. So if that's the case that I don't work past this, I'd rather do that than go somewhere and be miserable because of the way I'm being treated.
Yeah.
And so,
I got you. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I knew a few black writers who were on predominantly white shows, and they would just say it was miserable. They
really?
They were. A lot of racist things said to them.
Still, what?
Yeah.
From other writers in the posse?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
What?
So then it just
Was
became.
there any like funny reverse shit though, where you're in the black cast and there's more black writers than white writers, or
It
something
was
like
usually
that?
more black writers than white writers, but it was never like that. All the shows I was on, it was always inclusive.
Okay.
It was like, oh no, we want different opinions and different thoughts. We don't want everybody to have the same thoughts as ours. And so it was always, how do we make this better by bringing new people in and fresh voices? And it was good. There was once in a while you might have one white writer show up, and you could feel that he felt he was slumming it by being on the show.
What?
So you know.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
So anyway,
Wow.
the game was a spinoff of Girlfriends, where
it's guys in their lives.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Or like a?
it was,
Or was it more
the
reality?
cousin of Tracy Ellis Ross. They created this character and said these were the show about the women behind football players.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Interesting.
So it was a mom, a wife, and a girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
And then they had their football player husbands and
all right.
boyfriends. And so I went on to that show, and I'd worked with Mara for 1 year over at Jamie Foxx show, and so she was really cool. And so she was like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And I was like, "Oh, I'll just do it for maybe a year, and then I'll go back and focus on my features." And then while I was there that year, I fell in love with the show.
Oh, okay.
And it became, and to Mara's credit, it became more than just the women behind these guys. The guys and women became equal, and then it became like a dramedy. And then second season, third season became this serialized. Before people were binging shows, it became like this serialized dramedy that was like a huge hit in the TV world, but like underground hit, where BET picked it up in our third season in syndication and was running it like 8-hour blocks of the game.
Oh wow!
And we would get like a 1.2 million people watching on CW for new episodes.
Okay.
And then on BET, we'd get like a 2.8 million were watching reruns.
Wow.
So BET was like, we want this show, because CW canceled us. And they were like, no, we want this show. This is a huge show for us. So after we were canceled.
And CW was fine with pawning it off essentially, or what?
The CW was making a shift away from comedies and their whole brand. They wanted their brand to be
Is that when
more,
they started getting more in the vampire and all that other wild shit?
Yeah, because they got rid of us.
and
they
the
also,
witches and vampires. They went all kinds of left wing fucking crazy, right?
They were like, we want the 1 hour young people. And they got rid of us, but they also got rid of wrestling, which was huge numbers for them.
Yeah,
but they were like, that's not what we want in our brand anymore.
I got you.
And so I was off for a minute, and then some friends of mine were like, oh, we have this kids show at Disney XD, Para Kings, if you want to come over here. And I was like, yeah, I'll work on my movies. I was only going to do a couple of days a week there. I was like, sure. So I did that for like 3 months, and then they called and were like, BET wants a show. They want you to come back. And I was like, I don't want to come back. I want to focus on movies. I want to have a movie out there with my name on it.
Now, let me ask you, when you go from TV writer doing tons of episodes in multiple seasons, which is many more hours than a movie, right? But then you do the giant production of what a movie is. Does the writer get paid a much larger amount, or how does that really go down?
No, you have to build up your credits on the movie side to get those large amounts.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I was already at a good place in TV financially, but I would be starting over on the movie side, and I'd get a couple gigs, and then movies, 90 to 95% of the movies that they commission you to write never get made.
Oh.
Most like, you'll go into an executive's office and you will see hundreds of scripts on their shelves.
Wow.
And none of those are getting made.
Wow.
It's very few movies get made per year.
Sure.
So TV gives you the experience, and if I write something on the show, it's going to be on the air in a month.
Yeah. That's
TV's,
great.
I read an article. It was a guy who made millions of dollars in features over like 10 years, but he never got a movie made. And he said it crushed his spirit. I mean, the money is great, but most people who get into writing aren't doing it for the money. You're doing it so you can write something and have it out there.
Sure.
I know it sounds crazy to some people. I'll take $1 million and not have it, but that's not usually why people get into it.
Yeah, of course.
And so I ended up working on the game, and then I went to Disney XD, and then they called and said, look, we need you back on the game. We'd love to have you. And so I talked to my friends at the kids show, and they were like, look, you're just here a couple of days a week. You can still work on your movie stuff. Just go back.
Okay.
And so I went back, and it was the best thing I could have done. I went back, and we did season 4. We actually shot that in Atlanta. And when we premiered, like the months leading up to that premiere of the game, Return, was like this buzz in the air of people. You could kind of feel the energy, and people would call and say, hey, we're having a game party. We want to know if what kind of jerseys, what color are the jerseys, and it was like, this feels weird. And I remember talking to Salim Akil, who was the other EP on the show. I was like, Salim, it feels weird. Like, people are really excited about the show coming back. And he was like, yeah. He's like, what do you think we're going to do? I said, I think we might get 4 or 5 million people watching that premiere. And he was like, you think so? I was like, it feels crazy. I feel a buzz. I felt the same buzz when Cosby Show, that first Cosby Show was going to premiere, like months before, the buzz leading up to it.
Okay.
And so we ended up premiering that year to 7.7 million.
Oh, my God.
Which, for cable, blows everything out the water. We still hold the record for highest rated comedy in cable history.
Wow.
7.7 million for that premiere.
Wow.
Just everybody came back for that show, and ended up doing another 6 seasons on that show.
Wow.
I started directing during that time.
Nice.
I just really spread my wings and just had a ball.
Okay. Hell yeah. So that's why. What was any funny or crazy stories from the game? You want to just throw one out there in the air that you remembered or was hilarious, or just something on set? Was there any marriage proposals over the years, or this, or any kind of just way crazy out there, cool things that went down?
Crazy things.
Nothing.
Most of the crazy things happened like during the Jamie Foxx time.
Okay.
I think we had moments that were just like.
Who was your favorite to write for special celebrity guest?
Oh, celebrity guest
that came on. Who's like, you're like, I gotta write this dude in because he's my favorite all-time motherfucker. There had to be like one time over the years where you had to like write somebody kind of in because you just wanted to meet him or not see him or whatever, or no?
There was, you know what? I don't remember her name. There was a radio DJ at Power 106.
Okay.
And I was like, she is Liz. That's who it was. She was so good. And I was like, I love her in the mornings. I was like, I'm going to write her in. So I wrote her in, and she came and she did the show. She did a great job.
That's
it was
cool.
Nice. And she was very nice in person.
That's funny.
And I remember we had Magic Johnson on because Mara and Celine were huge fans of Magic Johnson.
Okay,
so
that's
we
cool.
wrote him. So once in a while, we'll write somebody in to say, hey, we love this person. And we had God, one of the guys from The Wire.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that's cool. Hell yeah. That's a great show.
It was for a small part, but it was like,
yeah.
We're like, we're fans. We want him on the show.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so we do a lot of that. We had one moment. It's not a salacious moment, but it's just a moment that was great. Kobe Bell, who was on Third Watch, and he was on that show Gifted. He was one of our main characters, and I remember we wrote this scene where he had to. His wife was gonna break up with him. And he had to, ask her to come back. And so we wrote this almost 2-page monologue for him. It was long. And so it was, and she wouldn't respond to any of it. And he had to play this thing where after he would say, well, I'm sorry for, not taking out the trash. Then she didn't respond. Okay, I'm sorry that I yelled at you. And I'm sorry, I've been such a bad, like it just kept building. And so we were shooting out by the airport, this hotel. And I remember it was almost midnight. We had Rob Bass on the show doing a performance thing for us.
That's great.
We were out there shooting, and the hotel people came out and said, you guys got to wrap up. You've run over. It's over. We got to shut this down. Our guests are complaining. They were like, we got one more scene. And so they were like, they came and they're like, you got one take to get this. And so Kobe Bell, we gave him 2 pages of dialogue, and he went in, said action, and let me say, he ran through that whole thing without making one mistake in 2 pages. And I was just like, this guy's great. Magic.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
They don't have teleprompters.
No.
Nothing like that. You have to memorize your shit.
No.
That's great. So, and then there to Blackish, right? Or
after the game, I finished with BET, and then I got on Uncle Buck with Mike Epps.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fun. Now he is a funny motherfucker.
He is.
Now I haven't brought up anything because we're a cannabis lifestyle radio station, but if someone's going to be puffing a little bit here and there, it's got to be him, huh?
I'm sure he partakes. I never saw him partake.
No, I know.
But I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think he's
Jamie,
anti.
maybe for sure. It's got to maybe or nah.
Jamie, I don't think so.
Nah?
You know what?
Was he very straight edge type of dude?
Straight?
Straight edge, you know?
No, he wasn't. I think he had a bad experience when he was younger, if I remember correctly.
Really? That's funny.
I think when he was much younger, he had a bad experience.
Oh.
And I think he at that point, he was like, nah.
That's hilarious.
Nah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, Uncle Buck was fun. We had a good time on that show. We only did 8 episodes, and then I got the call after we wrapped, like a month later, from Kenya Barris, who, creates the Ish world of Blackish, Grownish, and Mixedish. And we worked together for 7 seasons on the game. And so he called and said, hey, man, I heard you're free. Why don't you come over to Blackish? And so I was like, at that point, I knew it was going to be an Emmy-nominated show. The buzz was already there. And he was like, yeah, come over. You can direct. You can produce. And I did that for a season. I did it for season 3. I left that show at the end of season 3. And I had a ball while I was there. And then I wanted to just focus on movies, developing, and TV. I know I keep going back to movies, but
no.
It's a dream.
I got you. No, I got you.
So I did that for a year, and then during that time, they called NBC, was like, hey, why don't you come be on Marlon? Because I had a pilot at NBC at the time. They were like, why are we waiting to hear about this pilot? Why don't you come work on Marlon? So I did that for 4 months, and Marlon was great. Like, I had never worked with him. I kind of would see him around at certain things, but never worked with him. And
cool energy and vibe, and just they've been cool from out the womb.
Very cool and very generous.
Yeah, really?
Very generous, yes.
Interesting.
He would always throw writers gifts.
Oh, nice.
To say thank you for the work that we did.
That's tight.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, he was very, very nice when it came to things like that.
Hell yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And then I worked at Marlon for a few months. And then they called me once we wrapped the season. They're like, hey, would you come back to Blackish and run it with Jonathan Groff, who had been running it with Kenya Barris before he went to Netflix. And they were like, Kenya's leaving, want you to see if you'd run it with Jonathan. And so I said, yeah.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice.
I ran it season 5.
Nice. And then when you get to the level of, is it executive producer?
Yeah.
The checks get a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I ran the.
Get to, after all these years of fucking going through everything, you get to be to the point where, you could say it ain't that fucking easy, but at least when you got there, the bump up is to,
Yeah, I ran the game for the last 5 seasons of the show, and so the checks bumped up. The checks bumped up, and then the directing is just like extra, and the residuals, all that stuff.
Sure.
And then running Blackish, ABC gave me an overall deal. So the overall deal.
Okay.
Yes, that is the thing that
you strive after 20 plus years to hopefully get.
Yeah, yes. Some writers don't like them. Because when you work for a studio, that means you can only work for that studio.
Sure.
So they call them the golden handcuffs. You get paid a lot of money, but you can't go anywhere else. And that's what goes back to my thought of people want freedom. You don't write to be hemmed in. You want freedom.
Is that, though, like a 10, 20? Like, how is it literally a deep thing where you sign this thing and they're like, 10-year contract? Or like,
no, usually 2, and some people will get 4 years, but I had a 3-year contract.
Oh, sweet.
But what that meant is I work for them. They put me on whatever show they want to put me on that's in their family.
Okay.
And they pay me every week a set payment.
Absolutely.
And there's no breaks. So how, like on the shows, if you go down, then obviously you don't get paid for 3 months or 6 months.
No, they got you going.
They keep you every. That's the part where it's like, oh, this is a weekly check. It's like having a regular job. You get a weekly check, and so when you have that kind of security, at least for 3 years, is a big deal when you're writing.
Of course, yeah, for sure, it's great. Hell yeah. Because then you can stack away for the movie.
Yes.
That's cool, man. Any shout outs to any friends and family out there?
Shout outs to all the exec producers that I worked for that got me to where I am. Kenya, Mara and Salim, Bentley, Yanetta, it's just all of them. They all kind of lifted me up anytime I wanted to do something. They were like, of course.
Hell yeah. Anyway, anybody could actually get hold of you if they ever wanted to give a shout out or say what's up or anything of that nature. Is there a non-private Instagram or anything?
Yeah, Mr. Kenny Smith. on Instagram, Mr. Kenny Smith on Twitter.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. And you know what it's like. End of the Haze Radio Spotlight. We're going to take a little break. Check out all different cannabis talk shows, music, and live concerts we have. Thank you so much, Kenny, for coming on Haze Radio and telling us what it's like to be a writer, producer, exec, runner, the whole deal and gamut. And those of you aspiring to get into Hollywood or anything to do with the entertainment industry, I hope this was able to give you a little bit of insight that it's definitely not easy. And you got to strive and you got to hustle, just like anything else in life. So I'm signing off. This is Andrew Pizzicalis, Haze Radio Spotlight. We out. Peace. You're listening to Haze Radio Network, Cannabis Lifestyle Radio.